These six energies are draining you without you realizing. Tesla revealed, and when he finally understood what was happening, it was already too late. Michael woke up that Tuesday with the feeling that something invisible was sucking the life out of him. It wasn't ordinary tiredness. It was as if every cell in his body was being shut down, one, by a force he couldn't name. He looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, deep-set eyes, pale skin, a blank expression he didn't recognize as his own. 3 months ago, Michael was a vibrant man. He worked as an engineer at a technology company in Seattle, loved running on Sunday mornings, laughed easily, but something changed, and it changed quickly. First, there were the thoughts. Negative ideas that weren't his began to invade his mind like radio static. Then came exhaustion, a profound fatigue that no amount of sleep could cure. Then the people around him started to look different. He felt like they were sucking something out of him just by being close. Michael tried everything. Doctors said everything was normal. Therapists talked about burnout. But he knew, deep in his soul, he knew that this wasn't just psychological. It was something older, more real, more dangerous. It was then that he found the notebook, an antique shop in the city center, half hidden among abandoned stores. Michael walked in by chance, looking for a quiet place to think. At the back of the store, on a dusty table, was a worn leather notebook, no label, priceless, just a faded inscription on the cover, NT, 1899, Nikola Tesla. Michael opened the notebook and read the first page. The words seemed to pulse on the page, as if they had a life of their own. There are 6 invisible forms of energy drain that humanity does not understand. They operate at frequencies that the conscious mind does not detect, but the body knows, the soul feels, and when you are being drained, everything around you begins to fall apart, slowly, silently, until there is nothing left. Michael felt a shiver run up his spine. It was as if Tesla were speaking directly to him, across time. He bought the notebook. The old store owner looked at him with a strange expression, half sad, half worried, and just said, "I hope you're ready for what you're about to discover." That night, Michael locked the apartment door, turned off his cell phone, and began reading. Tesla described something that modern science still did not have the courage to admit, that there is an invisible energy field around each human being. He called this the vibrational field of the soul. And just as electricity can be drained from a battery, a person's life energy can be drained, without physical contact, without visible violence, without the victim realizing what is happening. Michael turned the page and found the list, the 6 energies that drain you without you realizing it. The first was something he already felt in his skin, the presence of people with incompatible frequencies. Tesla explained that some people operate at such a low vibration that, when they approach you, they create a kind of energetic short circuit. It's not that they are bad, it's just that their frequency pulls yours down, like an inverted magnet. Michael thought about Laura, his co-worker. Every time she entered the room, he felt the weight in his chest. She didn't do anything wrong, but being near her was like carrying an invisible backpack of rocks. The second energy was even more subtle, environments contaminated by old emotions. Tesla said that places where there was intense suffering are impregnated with that frequency. Offices, houses, even entire streets can carry the vibration of past tragedies. And when you pass by, you absorb it without knowing it. Michael remembered the building where he worked. There was something wrong in that place. Everyone felt it, but no one spoke. He continued reading, but something interrupted him, a noise at the door. Michael looked up from his notebook. The apartment was silent, but he swore he heard something. A light knock, then nothing. He returned to the text, but now his breathing was faster. His heart was pounding in his chest. And then he read the third energy, the one that made his blood run cold. The third form of drainage is the most dangerous because it operates through invisible bonds created by people who have already left your life, but who still maintain an energetic connection with you. They don't need to be present. All they need to do is think about you, and you will begin to feel the drainage, as if they were sucking your light from afar. Michael stopped breathing. He knew exactly who he was. Sarah, your ex-girlfriend. They had broken up 6 months ago, but since then, Michael felt like she was still there. Not physically, but somehow, she had never left. And it was exactly at that moment that the cell his R lit up on its own. A message from Sarah. "Do you still think about me?" Michael dropped the phone like it was on fire. How did she know? How at the very moment he was reading about this, she was sending him a message. He looked at Tesla's notebook and something inside him changed. It was no longer just curiosity. It was urgent. He needed to understand what was happening before it was too late, because now he knew something was draining his energy. And it wasn't just one thing. There were 6 invisible forces operating at the same time at different frequencies, sucking the life out of him without him even realizing it. Tesla had discovered this over 100 years ago, and now, Michael was about to find out too. If you feel like something invisible is draining you, that life is heavier than it should be, sign up now, because what comes next could completely change the way you see reality. Michael didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch with Tesla's notebook open on his lap and Sarah's message still flashing on his cell phone screen. He didn't respond. I couldn't, because now he understood. Responding would be like opening a door, and on the other side of that door, there was something he didn't want to let in again. At 5 in the morning, he returned to his notebook. The fourth energy described by Tesla was perhaps the most disturbing of all: intrusive thoughts that are not yours. Tesla explained that the human mind operates like an antenna. It not only sends, but also receives. And when you are vulnerable, tired, stressed, emotionally fragile, you become an open receptor for external frequencies. Have you ever had a thought so strange, so out of character, that you wondered where it came from? It wasn't created by you. It was picked up, like radio static. And the more you feed those thoughts, the more they drain your life energy, because you're holding on to something that doesn't belong to you. Michael felt a knot in his stomach. For the past few months, he had had thoughts that scared him, thoughts of giving up, to disappear, not worth anything. He always thought it was depression, but now he was starting to understand that maybe those ideas weren't his. Maybe they were transmissions, low frequencies that he was picking up without knowing it. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. They're not mine, he whispered into the emptiness of the apartment. These thoughts are not mine. And for the first time in months, he felt a small but real relief. But the notebook wasn't finished. The fifth energy was something Tesla called the field of collective expectation. He described how the society around a person can create a kind of invisible prison, made up of judgments, comparisons, and projections. When everyone around you expects you to be a certain way, even if you know deep down that it's not that way, you spend an absurd amount of energy trying to keep that mask in place. Michael thought about work, the way everyone saw him as the trustworthy guy. What solves everything? The one who never complains. But inside he was falling apart, and no one saw, because he wouldn't let me. Tesla was right. That mask was sucking the life out of him. He turned the page and found the sixth energy, and when he read it, something inside him broke. The sixth form of draining is the quietest, and therefore, the most deadly. It is when you are stuck in an old version of yourself, when you refuse to evolve because you are afraid of losing who you were. Every day that you live trying to be who you are no longer, you drain your own energy. You become the very vampire of your soul. Michael felt tears burning in his eyes. He was doing it. He was holding on to a version of himself that no longer existed. The Michael of 3 years ago, the one with plans, energy, dreams, but that Michael had died, and he was carrying the corpse, pretending he was still alive. He closed his notebook and rested his head in his hands. It was then that the phone rang. It was an unknown number. Michael answered without thinking. Hello? Silence on the other side, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was a heavy silence, as if someone was there, breathing, listening. Who is it? Michael asked, his voice shaking. And then, a hoarse, almost whispered voice. You shouldn't have found that notebook. The call dropped. Michael froze. His heart was beating so hard he could hear the blood pounding in his ears. Who was that? How did anyone know about the notebook? He looked out the window. The street was empty, but he felt it, a presence, something watching him. He took the notebook and quickly leafed through it until the end. There was one last note, handwritten, in a different handwriting than Tesla's. It looked recent, as if someone had written there a few weeks ago. If you are reading this, it is because the 6 energies have already begun to act go. You have little time. They don't drain by chance. They drain because someone, or something, is feeding off of you. And the more you understand, the more danger you are in, because those who feed on this energy do not want you to awaken. They need you to stay asleep, drained, vulnerable. Michael dropped the notebook as if it were burning. Was someone feeding on him? It didn't make sense, but at the same time, it made all the sense in the world. He thought about Laura, his co-worker. He thought of Sarah, who was still looking for him, even after months. He thought about the building where he worked, that heavy atmosphere that everyone felt but no one mentioned. And then he understood. These were not coincidences. They were symptoms. He was being drained on purpose. And the 6 energies that Tesla described were not just abstract concepts. They were tools, invisible weapons that someone, or something, was using against him. Michael got up and went to the bathroom. He washed his face with ice water and looked in the mirror. This time, he didn't see a stranger. He saw someone waking up, someone starting to understand. And it was at that moment that he made a decision. He was no longer going to be a victim. He was going to find out who, or what, was draining his energy. And he was going to cut those ties one by one even if it meant dismantling the entire life he knew. Because Tesla had left more than a list in his notebook. He had left instructions, and Michael was about to follow them. But before that, he needed to understand something. Why him? Why were these energies focused on him? He returned to his notebook and found a sentence underlined 3 times. Those who vibrate the highest are the preferred targets. Because light attracts shadow, and the brighter you become, the more shadows will try to erase you. Michael felt a shiver run through his entire body. He wasn't being drained because he was weak. He was being drained because, on some level, he was strong, and something, or someone, knew it. And now, the war had begun. Michael spent the next 3 days locked in the apartment. He called in sick to work. He turned off social media. He ignored Sarah's messages that continued to arrive, more and more insistent, more and more strange. He had a mission now: follow Tesla's instructions. The notebook was not just a description of the 6 energies, it was a defense manual. Tesla had left behind techniques, experiments he himself had tested, methods of severing invisible bonds, ways of raising one's personal frequency above the reach of entities that drained human energy. The first instruction was simple but brutal: identify all active drainage points. Michael took out a sheet of paper and started writing. Laura, co-worker, always heavy, always complaining, always sucking up attention. Sarah, ex-girlfriend, emotional bond never severed, constant messages, intrusive thoughts about her. The work building, contaminated environment, oppressive feeling. Everyone feels, no one speaks. Thoughts that are not mine, ideas of failure, giving up, uselessness, external frequencies captured by the mind. The social mask, pretending to be the trustworthy guy when inside you're falling apart. The old version of myself, stuck in the past, refusing to evolve. 6 points, 6 energies, all operating at the same time. Michael looked at the list and felt a weight in his chest. But this time, it wasn't drainage. It was clarity. He could finally see the enemy. Tesla's second instruction was more radical: immediate physical and energy cut. You can't negotiate with what drains you, can't explain. You can't try to fix it. You need to cut. Fast. No warning. No guilt, like a surgeon removing a tumor. Because while you hesitate, the drainage continues. Michael took out his cell phone and blocked Sarah. No farewell message. No explanation. Just complete blocking. His heart sped up, but he didn't stop. He went to the settings and also blocked the unknown numbers that had called in the last few days. Deleted old emails, photos, entire conversations. He was cutting the invisible threads. And for the first time in months, he felt something like relief. But Tesla had more instructions. The third technique was the strangest: cleaning the environment with sound frequency. Tesla described how certain sounds could break stagnant energetic patterns. He recommended specific tones: 432 Hz, 528 Hz, frequencies that, according to him, reorganized the vibrational field of a space. Michael downloaded a frequency app and left it playing in the apartment. At first it seemed ridiculous, but after a few minutes he noticed something. The air felt lighter. Breathing became easier, as if something invisible had been dissolved. He continued reading. The fourth instruction was personal: write an energy disconnection letter. No to send, but to burn. Tesla explained that the act of writing materialized the emotions trapped in the body, and the act of burning transmuted that energy into release. It was a ritual, old, powerful. Michael picked up a pen and started writing. Sarah, I release you. I release the bond we held. I release the expectation that you will return, that something will change, that there will still be something between us. You do not belong to me. I do not belong to you. And now I sever that thread. He folded the paper, went to the sink, lit a match, and let it burn. The flames slowly consumed the words, and when the last spark went out, Michael felt something strange: lightness, as if a weight he had been carrying for months had finally been lifted. But he knew he wasn't finished yet. Tesla's fifth technique was the most challenging: confronting the contaminated environment. You can't run away from everywhere, but you can clear them. When you enter a heavy space, visualize a golden light around you, not like childish imagination, but like vibrational technology. You are creating a protective field, and if the environment is too strong, leave. Don't hesitate. Your energy is worth more than any loyalty to a dead place. Michael thought about the office. He knew he would have to go back, but now he would come back different, protected, conscious. And then, on the sixth instruction, Tesla left something that Michael didn't expect. One final warning: when you begin to raise your frequency, to cut ties, to protect your energy, you become visible. To those who feed on low vibrations, you become a threat, and they will react, not with physical violence, but with emotional manipulation, with attempts to make you feel guilty, to pull you back. They will say that you have changed, that you are distant, that you are no longer the same. And they are right. You are not, and you never will be again. Michael felt a shiver. He thought about Laura. She had already noticed that he was different. I had made subtle comments, trying to get him to return to his old behavior, but he didn't come back. He thought about Sarah and the increasingly desperate messages. She was feeling it. She knew the bond was breaking. And then, Michael understood something profound. These people weren't bad. They were just operating on the only frequency they knew. And when you change frequencies, you become inaudible to them. It was like tuning a radio to another station. They don't listen to you anymore, and you don't listen to them. And that wasn't cruelty. It was survival. Michael closed his notebook and was silent for a long moment. He knew that from that point on, there would be no going back. He had made choices, severed ties, raised the frequency, and now he was about to discover what happens when you stop being a victim and become a protected energy field. But something still bothered him. The message in the notebook, that recent handwriting. Someone had written there. Someone knew he would find that book. And then Michael had a disturbing thought. What if the notebook wasn't a fluke? What if I was guided to him? He returned to the antique shop the next day. The store was closed, but not with a "back soon" sign. It was abandoned, as if it had never been opened. Dust on the windows, chains on the door. Michael felt his blood run cold. He looked around. The street was empty, but he felt it, that presence again, something watching him. And then, he heard a voice behind him. "You are ready now." Michael turned around. He was an elderly man, with white hair and deep eyes. He was wearing a dark overcoat and holding a carved wooden cane. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice tense. The man smiled. It wasn't a threatening smile. It was serene, almost paternal. "Someone who also found the notebook, a long time ago." Michael took a step back. "What do you want from me?" The man looked up at the sky as if he was choosing his words carefully. "Tesla didn't write that notebook just to document. He wrote to select. Only those who are ready to awaken find those pages, and when they find it, everything changes. I don't understand. You will understand. Because what comes now is not more preparation. It's the test." And before Michael could respond, the man turned his back and began walking. But before disappearing around the corner, he stopped and looked back. "The drainage you felt? It wasn't random. It was orchestrated. And now that you've cut ties, they'll try to pull you back. But this time, it will be different. Because now, you know." And then he disappeared. Michael stood alone in the empty street, holding the notebook to his chest. He didn't know who that man was, but he knew something had changed. The war he thought was starting had been going on for a long time, and now he was finally awake. Michael returned home with the man's words echoing in the mind. It was orchestrated. He locked the door, threw the keys on the table, and looked at the notebook as if it were a bomb about to explode. All of it. The exhaustion, the intrusive thoughts, Sarah, Laura, the suffocating work environment. None of it had been a coincidence. Someone was draining him on purpose. But who and why? He opened the notebook again, this time looking for something he had missed. And it was then that he saw it. A loose sheet, hidden between the last pages. A thin, almost translucent paper with a handwritten note. They operate in groups, never alone. They identify those who have a high vibrational frequency and create a network around them. People, places, situations, everything connected, everything designed to keep you stuck in a draining loop. And the scariest thing, most of the time, the people involved don't know they are being used. They are just pieces, instruments of something bigger. Michael felt the ground disappear from beneath his feet. Sarah didn't know. Laura didn't know. They were just the channels. Something bigger was behind it, something that used ordinary people as drainage antennas. And then he remembered. The call, the husky voice that said, "You shouldn't have found that notebook." He picked up the phone and looked at the call history. The unknown number was still there. He copied and pasted it into the browser, looking for some information. Nothing. But he didn't give up, used a reverse tracking app, and what appeared made his blood run cold. The number was registered in the building where he worked, more specifically, in the Human Resources Director's office. David Brennan. Michael barely knew the man. They had talked maybe twice in 3 years, but now everything was starting to make sense. David was responsible for hiring, for organizing the teams, for deciding who worked alongside whom. He had put Laura in the same room as Michael. He had suggested that Michael take on more responsibilities, more projects, more load. He had created the perfect environment for continuous drainage. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, breathing quickly. He needed proof. I needed to understand where this was going. The next morning he returned to work, but this time he wasn't vulnerable. He was equipped. Before leaving home, he followed the last ritual described by Tesla. He visualized a sphere of golden light around him, not as fantasy, but as technology, a vibrational protective field, and when he walked into the office he felt the difference immediately. Laura tried to start a conversation as always, but this time her words didn't reach him. It was as if she were speaking through glass. He listened but didn't absorb. She noticed. "You look different," she said, narrowing her eyes. Michael just smiled. "I'm fine." But Laura didn't smile back. She looked at him with a strange intensity, almost hostile, and then Michael saw it. For a split second, her eyes changed. They became opaque, empty, as if she wasn't really there. He looked away and went to his desk. Throughout the day he observed everything, every interaction, every move, and he began to notice patterns. Whenever he tried to work on something important, Laura would show up with an urgency. Whenever he started to feel mental clarity, the phone would ring with an unnecessary meeting. Every time he took a deep breath and felt his energy rise, something or someone would come along to pull him back. They weren't coincidences. It was a system. At the end of the day, Michael waited until everyone left, and then he did something he had never done before. He entered David Brennan's office. The room was empty. David was already gone, but Michael wasn't there to confront him. "I was there to understand." He looked around. A very clean table, walls without personal photos, just diplomas, certificates. And then he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. On the shelf, among business management books, there was an old copy, leather cover, identical to Tesla's notebook. Michael took the book and opened it. It wasn't the same notebook, but it was from the same series, same handwriting, same notes. But this notebook didn't teach how to protect yourself, taught how to drain. The art of extracting vital energy from high-frequency individuals is a forgotten science. But those who master it can accumulate enough vibrational power to influence entire realities. The secret is to create a network. Don't attack directly. Surround. Use intermediaries, people nearby, contaminated environments, implanted thoughts, and then wait. They will drain themselves. Michael felt nauseous. David wasn't just a manager. He was an energetic predator, and Michael had been the perfect target. It was then that the door opened. David entered, closing the door behind him. He didn't seem surprised. He seemed satisfied. "I knew you would find out, Breer," he said, his voice calm, almost friendly. Michael backed away, holding the notebook to his chest. "What did you do to me?" David shrugged. "Just what I need to do to survive. Do you think I've had this position for 15 years out of competence? For politics? No, Michael. I have it because I know how to extract it, how to feed myself. You are a monster." David smiled. There was no malice in the smile, just coldness. "I am a survivor, just like you are trying to be now. But I'll tell you something that Tesla didn't put in his notebook. When you cut ties, when you protect yourself, you don't become free. You become lonely, because most people operate at this low frequency. And if you go up, you're alone up there. So tell me, is it worth it?" Michael looked at him, and something inside him lit up. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. "Okay, because I prefer to be alone in the light than accompanied in the dark." And then, Michael did something David didn't expect. He didn't run away. He didn't scream. He didn't defend himself. He just said in a firm voice, "I sever the bond between you and me, now, completely," and visualized, as Tesla taught, an invisible thread breaking. David blinked, and for the first time, he looked confused. "What did you do?" Michael didn't respond. He simply left the room, taking the 2 notebooks with him. In the following days, something changed in the office. Laura stopped looking for him. Unnecessary meetings are gone. The atmosphere was still heavy, but Michael no longer felt it, because he had created a field around him, and nothing got through. He resigned 2 weeks later, not because he was running away, but because you understand, you don't fix contaminated environments. You abandon them. And then, on the last night before leaving town, Michael got a call. It was the elderly man, the same one that had appeared on the street. "You passed the test," he said. "What test?" "The test of knowing when to fight and when to just leave. Most try to destroy predators, but you get the idea. You don't have to destroy them. You just need to stop feeding them." Michael was silent. "And now? Now you live, in truth. No drainage, no parasitic links. Free." And the call dropped. Michael looked out the window. The city was lit. Millions of people, millions of lives, and how many of them were being drained without knowing it? He didn't know, but he knew one thing. He was no longer among them. He had woken up, and now he was going to live as Tesla did, alone, protected, but free. Michael moved to a small town in rural Oregon, without notifying anyone. No dramatic goodbyes. He just packed the essentials, Tesla's 2 notebooks, and left. He left behind his apartment in Seattle, his job, his old phone numbers. He left behind the version of himself that accepted being drained. In the first few days, he felt something strange. Internal silence. Not the silence of solitude, but the silence of peace. as if for the first time in years, his mind was truly his. No intrusive voices, no thoughts that didn't belong to him, without that constant feeling of being pulled down. He rented a simple house near a forest. I woke up early. He walked among the trees, read the notebooks. He practiced Tesla's techniques, and little by little, he began to feel something he had forgotten what it was like. Vitality, real energy, not that fake energy that comes from caffeine or adrenaline, but the energy that comes from within, what Tesla called uncorrupted life force. And then, something unexpected happened. He started attracting different people, not the same as before. Not the ones that drained, but people who vibrated on the same frequency as he now operated. A neighbor who meditated every morning, a woman at the local coffee shop who painted mandalas and talked about energy fields without sounding crazy, an old retired professor who had studied Tesla his entire life. Michael realized, when you change frequency, you change reality. The people you attract change. The places you go change. Even the thoughts that cross your mind change. He was not alone. He was just on another wavelength, and that made all the difference. But Michael knew the story wasn't over, because he had something now. Knowledge. And knowledge that is not shared dies with you. That's why he decided to write. He took out a blank notebook and started documenting everything. The 6 energies, protection techniques, what had happened to David, how he had cut ties, how he had freed himself. And then, he did something Tesla never did. He decided not to hide it. He created an online channel, anonymous, no face, just voice, and he started sharing. If you feel like something invisible is draining your energy, you're not crazy. You're right. Views started slowly, but after a few weeks something happened. The people started responding. Hundreds of them. Thousands. I've felt this for years and I thought it was just me. My partner drains my energy and I didn't know how to explain it. I work in a place that sucks my soul and now I understand why. Michael realized he hadn't been the only one. There were millions of people being drained, and most didn't even know this was possible. It was then that he received a direct message from a user without a photo, no name. Just a black icon. You're teaching people to protect themselves. That's dangerous. For you. Michael read the message and took a deep breath. For a moment the old fear tried to return, but he didn't let it. He replied, I know, but it's more dangerous to leave people in the dark. The answer came immediately. You have been warned. And then, nothing. Michael turned off the computer and looked out the window. Night was falling. The surrounding forest was silent, and he knew that, somehow, he had crossed a line. But he didn't regret it, because for the first time in his life, he was doing something that mattered, not to impress, not to please, but to free. And if that had a price, he was willing to pay it. Weeks later, he received another call. The elderly man, the same calm voice. You're making yourself too visible. I know. And you continue anyway. Michael thought for a moment. Then he replied, Tesla spent his entire life being ridiculed, isolated, wholesale, but he never stopped, because he knew the truth was more important than acceptance. I understand this now. The man was silent for a few seconds, and then, for the first time, Michael heard something in his voice that sounded like pride. Then you really understand. The 6th energy, the one that drains you from within, wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about holding on to the fear of evolving. And you severed that bond too. I cut it. Then you are ready for the last lesson. Michael sat in the chair, holding the phone tightly. What lesson? Tesla did not die in defeat. He died free. Because he understood that true power is not controlling others. It's not being controlled. And when you get to that point, you become untouchable. Not because no one tries to hit you, but because nothing they do can drain you anymore. Michael felt a shiver run up his spine. How do I know I've reached this point? You already know. Because you're doing it now. It's sharing. He's teaching. You're exposing yourself. And yet, you sleep peacefully. The call dropped. And Michael stood there, in the silence of the house, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Completeness. He no longer needed to prove anything. I no longer had to fight people who didn't understand. I no longer needed to carry the weight of bonds that didn't serve. He was free. And freedom, he discovered, was not the absence of struggle. It was the absence of internal drainage. Months later, Michael was walking through the woods when he saw something that made him stop. A young man, sitting on a rock, holding a leather notebook. The same type of notebook. The boy looked at him with wide eyes. Are you the guy from the channel? Michael smiled. It depends. Are you ready to awaken? The young man looked at the notebook in his hands and then back at Michael. I don't know. I just know. I feel like something is draining me, and I can't take it anymore. Michael sat next to him. So you've already taken the first step. Because awakening begins when you stop accepting draining as normal. They stood there, in silence, as the sun set between the trees, and Michael understood he hadn't found the notebook by chance. He had been chosen, just like now, he was helping to choose the next ones. Tesla's current had not died. She was just waiting for those brave enough to wake up. And now, Michael was part of it. 3 years later, Michael never returned to Seattle. He never looked for Sarah. He never confronted David again. Not because he was running away, but because I had understood the most profound lesson of all. You don't need to destroy what drained you. You just need to stop feeding it with your presence. And when you do, something magical happens. What once seemed enormous, essential, inescapable, simply disappears. Because he never had real power. It only had the power you gave it. The channel grew. The messages kept coming. Some were grateful. Others attacked him. But Michael didn't care anymore. Because he had learned Tesla's greatest truth. The energy you protect is the energy you multiply. And the more he protected himself, the stronger he became. Not strong in the sense of aggressive, but strong in the sense of unshakable. Because in the end, Michael realized that the war was never against people. It was against unconsciousness, against passive acceptance of being drained, against the idea that you must sacrifice yourself to be loved. And he won, not because he destroyed his enemies, but because he stopped being his own victim. He looked up at the night sky, full of stars, and whispered to the universe, "Thank you, Tesla, for teaching me that the greatest revolution doesn't happen on the streets. It happens within each person who decides to stop being drained and begins to vibrate at their own frequency." And somewhere, in some vibrational field beyond time, Michael felt that Tesla was listening and smiling. You don't need to fight what drains you. You just need to stop feeding it, cut the ties, protect your energy, and live in the frequency that is truly yours. Because when you do that, the whole world rearranges itself around you, not to punish you, but to set you free. If this story touched something in you, if you felt that these 6 energies are also draining you, sign up now. Because awakening is lonely, but it doesn't have to be done alone. And together, we can rekindle the frequency that Tesla left dormant in humanity. You're not crazy. You are waking up, and that changes everything.